Welcome to The Courage Effect. I'm Suzanne Weller, and this is a show about growth and unleashing what's possible. You will hear inspiring stories about what courage looks like, how we navigate what's getting in our way, and the opportunities that surface when we choose courage over comfort. Let's get started. Welcome to The Courage Effect. I want to give you a little bit of context around the conversation that you're about to hear. It's with award-winning photojournalist Ashley Gilbertson, who I am fortunate to also call a dear friend. I've known Ash for over 20 years, and I invited him to the show knowing that he brings so much honesty, bravery, compassion, and courage to the work that he does, which is documenting things in the world that we're not necessarily comfortable in seeing. He talks about being in conflict zones in Iraq and Afghanistan. He also talks about some domestic events that have been pretty disturbing for a lot of us, including the January 6th insurgents at the U.S. Capitol. His experiences with documenting what's important in our world take him into places that we might not be comfortable going to. But it is important for us to see what's happening and for him to show us the various ways in which the news happens. He has his opinions, he has his passion, as do I. We bring that to this conversation. I just want to also give some of you a bit of a trigger warning here. If these are some topics that are concerning for you, you might want to take a pause. But I do encourage you to listen to this conversation to hear about where we are in the world right now, how important it is for us to be having hard conversations, to be looking at things that we might rather step aside from, and to be engaging in what is now a very important part in history. Enjoy the conversation. I really appreciate Ash for being here, and I appreciate you listening. Hey everyone, welcome to The Courage Effect. It's great to have you here. I invited my guest today because not only is he a dear friend, but he is a photographer, and a lot of the time we experience photographs every day, and we don't necessarily think about the experience of the person that it took to actually create that photograph. And I worked in photography for a number of years, not as a photographer, but within the business. And you really see the love, the passion, the work, the courage, and everything that goes into doing this. A lot of the time, it is putting yourself into uncomfortable places on a pretty regular basis for a lot of photojournalists. And I really wanted to have this conversation to not just turn this person into a hero, because I do think in certain ways he is, but it's the passion and the need to document what's going on in the world and to show it to other people and to make sure that we have broader awareness around what is happening. My guest today is Ashley Gilbertson. So let me tell you a little bit about Ash. Ashley is an Australian photographer and writer living in New York City, recognized for his critical eye and unique approach to social issues. He was a member of Seven Photo prior to its acquisition by the Seven Foundation in 2023. He's a frequent contributor to major media outlets and a collaborator with various nonprofits. Ash's work for over 20 years has been focused on refugees and conflict, an interest that in 2002 led him to Iraq, and that is when I originally met Ash. His work from that country ultimately awarded him the Robert Capa Gold Medal, and in 2007 he published his first book, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Today, Ash documents global migration, climate and social and health issues, which we'll talk a little bit more about. He writes opinion pieces. He's in museums, he's in galleries, and he also does commercial assignments. So, Ash, I think that's a pretty great introduction for everything that you do. Welcome to The Courage Effect.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. I would love to start this conversation by you talking a little bit about what led you to pursuing photography.
I think, I was lucky. I was really lucky. I found my voice really early. I think a lot of us struggle, I think some of us struggle all our lives to find out how it is that we want to express ourselves. And I found that really early on. I knew that it was photography. I mean, the reason was total narcissism. I wanted pictures of myself skateboarding. I begged my dad for a camera. I was from like a good middle-class family, upper middle-class family, whatever in Australia. We had the means. My dad bought me a camera. He loved photography himself. And I realized I couldn't take pictures of myself skating. Duh, idiot.
Hey, but look what happened.
Yeah, well, so my friends were really good. I started photographing them, and there was something magical And really, this is when you find your language, when you find this thing that is just pure magic. And that's what photography was for me, this crazy box that I could go out and I could take pictures of my friends with, and then I could go back and I could process and I could print. And then I had this object that I was holding that somehow summed up this whole action, this whole scene in this print that I was holding. And it somehow represented something so much bigger than just this moment. And that magic still captivates me today. Like I go out, whether it's January 6th, whether it's a conflict, whether it's photographing, kids playing in a hydrant downstairs in New York, trying to find that moment, what Cartier-Bresson would have described as the decisive moment. That to me is magic. And it doesn't matter if it's a digital camera, whether it's my iPhone, whether it's my old Rolleiflex. There's nothing in the world that beats that, And I think finding that when I was 13, finding that that's what I wanted to do, is try to find that magic over and over and over again. I was really lucky. I met a scientist. He's actually a doctor and a scientist. He's working with AI and DNA yesterday, and he found when he was 19, he looked at genomics, and the same thing happened to him. He was like, "Oh my God, this is black magic," and he got into it. Now he's one of the leaders in the field, and I recognize, just talking to him, I was like, the way that he talked about it was the same way that I talk about photography. So you asked at a good time, because I was like, there was this realization. I was like, it's almost what I can't describe. It's this thing that's out there that I can do, that I can't do with the flute, that I can't do with the pen, that I can't do with poetry, that I can't do with reading, that I can't do with anything else. It's just all I can do it with is a camera.
Yeah. I love the idea of black magic.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I know. Especially with DNA, but DNA was such a good way to put it, because it's this stuff that you can't see.
Yeah.
Like the way that we work. I see other photographers working, and I'll see them working, and I'll be like, damn, that dude is missing the shot. Like, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna nail this assignment, and they're all gonna screw it up. And then I get my ass beat. You know, I just can't see what they're doing. I can't see how they're working, and it's this thing that the image is out there, the assignment is out there, the language is out there. It's just, how do you find it? You know, and sometimes that means going harder and being braver and being dumber. I mean, the line between courage and stupidity is thin.
I'm sure that depends on what you're covering.
Well, not really. Um, but yeah, this thing that is almost undefinable, but it's here, it's really here. And until you can identify what it is that you want to say, you can't identify with what you want to say it. And I think that maybe that's your follow-up, which I'm just going to answer anyway, whatever, even if it's not. I come from a deeply racist country where, as a teenager, I couldn't understand why the boys and girls that I was growing up with and the men and women that I was supposed to look up to could speak so badly of other people because they had different colored skin, because they have different cultures. And not speak badly, but like violently attack, have race riots on Bondi Beach. I'm a dumb little teenager in Australia, and I'm like, what is wrong with these people? I still feel the same way, except now I'm beginning to understand some of these reasons behind xenophobia, behind racism, behind nationalism. It's become my job in the world, besides being a father, to try to combat these feelings of nationalism, xenophobia, of racism, to try to remind people that we do have the same desires and the same concerns. I mean, we've known each other for 20 years. I've been at this for just a little bit longer than that. And all I've seen the world do is harden, is get more racist.
Yeah.
So I wonder if I should have done something different. But I mean, we were talking on the phone last week about this. What's our option? Our option is to do nothing. Fuck that. I can't do nothing. Like that's the last thing I can do. I try. Sometimes I sit here at home and I try to do nothing, but this thing is ingrained in me. Like I feel like this is born into me, and like I'm fine with that. But sometimes I wish I could sit and just chill, but I can't. Like it's wrong, and so maybe I've been fighting in the wrong way. Maybe I should tamper it down a little bit. Maybe I should be less Australian about my approach.
Yeah, right.
But that's what editors are for.
Okay, what is an Australian approach? Talk to me about that because I've never heard you say that before.
It's a bit of a brawl, mate. Um,
That's on brand.
yeah, yeah. I will often come out of the gates a little bit hard, um, and I have to be tempered down a little bit. I think that can be a little bit obnoxious, a little aggressive, which makes it very difficult to actually have the most important thing, which is a conversation. And I think the thing that we're lacking most right now is conversations in this country. It's how we got to where we are. I mean, the snipers on the roofs in Detroit during the election because they were worried about election violence, or what it looks like, what it sometimes feels like, is on the horizon for this country. I mean, I've worked all over the world, and it doesn't feel this has always been safe. This has always been home, and it doesn't feel very safe right now. It's still home, but it doesn't feel like the warm embrace of the United States, of the place I'm happy to come back to, where I can go sit and relax. This feels like we are right on the edge of a combat zone.
Yeah, which is terrifying.
It really is terrifying. Whether all of these places that have difficult situations with amazing people have always aspired to try to get here because of what this country has stood for. And it's really, there's a lot of sadness to see where we're at right now. But
Yeah.
I do believe that the country will come back.
Too.
But it's all we can really do, right? I mean,
Yeah. Well, and it's also particularly poignant for me to hear you say it feels like a combat zone because you've actually been in a combat zone.
now and then, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I worked a lot in combat. I worked in sort of small scale wars over in Southeast Asia and the South Pacific, and then Iraq for many, many years. Like you said, I did a book on the place. I worked with the New York Times. I guess what started out as like their war, your war, the Americans' war, turned into my war eventually when a Marine was killed on my watch because I made a decision that I shouldn't have made, which was I wanted to go see something, a dead insurgent in a mosque that I shouldn't have said yes to. And I came home from that, and I know that I learned how well, I learned that it's not just your war, that it's my war, that it's all of our war, that we all have ownership of this thing. But you can't cover these places and come home the same. Um, all of this comes with responsibility. Um, and there's no way of getting over any of this crap. That it's learning how to carry it. Um, but I've continued to go back since then, and you diff to that place and other places, and each one is different, but there's similarities. I mean, it's angry men with guns.
I wondered for you when you were documenting January 6th at the Capitol, that must have been triggering for you.
Mm, not really. I mean, like I think from the outside, I understand why you would say that because from the outside, it must have looked really scary, but it was. I didn't feel threatened by those guys. I mean, yeah, there were some really bad dudes there. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Um, the vast majority of them were not trained. They looked like jackass tourists, lost in the Capitol.
Mm.
Um, They didn't show any level of like tactical know-how. They weren't carrying bags, which is an important thing to look for. Bags which suggest long guns. Um, they didn't have any type of ballistic outfits on, like whether it's goggles, helmets, Kevlar vests, or boots. They didn't show any type of training, like where you would stack before you go into a door, where you were like scanning rooms when you would walk in. Like there's things that you look for. I would see those guys inside, and then I would get scared. Um, remember there was a point when I went down an escalator into the visitor center, which is where they had just gotten out the last senators and Pence. This is right after Eugene Goodman had stopped all of the protests. Sorry, the protests as well. Insurrectionists. Let us get the language right on this. I do not care how the narrative has changed between presidents. How one president can call it, a criminal act, and another can call it a day of love. What I saw was an insurrection, and what happened there was an insurrection.
Yep.
There is no question about that. The narrative will stay the same. These pictures will stand. And whether history wants to come back to this tomorrow, whether it wants to come back in 100 years, that was one of the shittiest days in American history. Now, after Goodman stopped those guys, I went to the visitor center. I saw this bad guy. I saw that he was moving around. I took a couple of pictures of him. I saw him turning to look at me out of the corner of my eye, and I turned around and walked. And then I moved to a stairway and I ran. So I was like, that guy is about to shoot me. I just had a feeling. Then like you develop these senses. And I guess that's one of the reasons I'm still here. But if I wasn't going to get shot, I was going to get something. So I just moved and I got out of the way. I left. It was weird though, because like 60 Minutes ended up calling and saying, all right, like there was one guy there that was a particularly bad guy. Here's a description of him. I was like, oh my God, that's a guy by the escalator. Yeah, I got a picture of him. Anyway, what I do want to say, let's given what we're talking about here, there was a lot, there were a lot of really stupid acts that day. There was a lot of mob mentality that day. A lot of terrible people did a lot of terrible things. I think that I still to this day think that they were led by their president, which was Trump, and essentially told what to do. I'm surprised they didn't get off criminal charges just on account of that. He incited a mob and told them to go down there. Like I was at the rally prior. If I was one of his supporters, I would have felt pretty good about going down there. Like he told them that they had been cheated out of the next election. Why would you not believe him?
I didn't realize that you had experienced that prior.
Yeah. So I
Wow.
ran down there. There's all the violence in the front, and a protest is a protest. Like there's grenades, like flashbang grenades going off. I'm used to that from combat, and like it gets pretty violent. Except I'm used to that's like I can take a hit. It's fine. Like even to the head, like you get a bit bloody, you get a black eye. It's not that big a deal. Like maybe it's growing up Australian. I don't know, but like I can manage that. But at one point, they started climbing the walls to go into the Capitol, and I was like, "This is the moment." I've seen fighting outside the Capitol before, but if they go up this wall and they get in, that's new. And my job is a news photographer. So, news photographer, I mean, like, what's new, right? So I was like, okay, I could get the picture of them climbing the wall and like have all those, like men looking like spiders on this wall outside the Capitol, which would be a great picture, but I have to move to get that picture and pull back. Or I could climb the wall. So I've got to give up one picture to possibly get another. So I climbed the wall. Anyway, I got inside. It's one of the first 20 people or something in. And these insurrectionists went around a corner and they came to one police officer, and it was Eugene Goodman. And he's there, his nightstick is like the retractable stickers on the ground. He's telling him to stop, hold, and he's going for his gun, his service weapon, and he's unclipped it, and he's putting his hand on the butt of the gun, but he's not pulling it out of the holster. And I'm with these guys that are like, stand down, get the fuck out of the way. They're carrying Confederate flags. These are white nationalists. Let's be very clear about who they were. These are white nationalists, insurrectionists in the United States Capitol trying to overthrow democracy. One man holds them up for long enough to save the Vice President of America, Nancy Pelosi, and senators who are leaving the visitor center in those moments. This is the same Capitol who held down that man's race for how many years? His belief in what our country could be and hopefully will be. That type of courage, that type of heroism. That's what I live for. Like, that's what I see. A lot of bad shit. I see a lot of people doing terrible things. That moment of hope of Eugene Goodman, who himself was a veteran, 2 tours of Iraq. He believes in this shit. You know, like everybody else is pulled back, everyone else is gone. Gene stands there and fights, and he holds him back. He did not pull his weapon. His restraint of not pulling that Glock out. Had he pulled that thing out, I think we would be sitting in a very different America right now. I think that would have been cop on insurrectionist violence. I think we would have looked at a massacre. Because those guys that I was with, I'm pretty sure were armed.
Yeah.
I mean,
That
he's
photograph.
dead set hero.
Yeah.
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 I just, and so humble. You know, I met him a couple of years later, and I sent him a print, and I was like, thank you. I was honored to be able to witness your heroism and all of this. And, you know, he got all these death threats, so he never wrote back, and I understood. And so finally, I was in the Capitol for another job. I was photographing one of the senators, and I said to the press guy, I was like, do you mind if we find Goodman? And he's like, oh, yeah, he's right outside. What? So he walks me outside the door, and he's like, Goodman, Ash. Goodman's like, hey, man.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So cool. It was so, so we just sit there and chat for an hour. Like, he's like, anyway, I'm supposed to be working. I'm like, right, okay.
Stop talking to me.
He's super cool. He's so nice. But his sense of duty, you know,
Yeah.
sense of duty to something greater. And I think that that's what I was talking about earlier, you know. I can't speak for him, except what I witnessed is you don't put yourself in a line like that unless you believe in something greater than yourself.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Thank you for that. I'm going to shift you a little bit because I'm also thinking about when you really started focusing on veterans and when you did Bedrooms of the Fallen. And I remember you reaching out to, and Bedrooms of the Fallen is a book where you were documenting the intact bedrooms of soldiers that had been killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. I remember you reaching out to the families of these men who had been killed, finding out if they had the bedroom intact, seeing if you could come and visit. I mean, my God, you doing that, going through that to me was courage, compassion, and then holding space for these people and sitting in so much darkness and like caring for them in those moments.
I'm still in touch with those guys. I was just texting with them with the parents of Exaros on the weekend, just like 2 days ago.
Wow.
Nick Exaros' dad, he had photographed his bedroom in 2010. His bedroom is still there. His mum, Lisa, is doing great. His sisters are both in college. His older brother, his younger brother is now a cop and got married. And his dad is a senator, a state senator, who used to be a cop. Anyway, I'm still in touch with a lot of the families. And if I'm in town, like I'll try to see them. A lot of them they've gotten a lot older, you know, because it's 15 years ago now. 10 years ago that the book was published.
What sticks with you from that work? I mean, because that was definitely a shift in really honoring. I mean, having so much respect for those heroes, and I'm wondering how that has continued to inform you.
I mean, it's a memorial piece, you know? Like that was very much a memorial piece. And it taught me a few things. One is that the harder the work is, the better the work will be. And that it's really important that when you get really deep into it and you want to stop, that is exactly the moment that you have to try twice as hard. You never pull out. You never stop working. Like as soon as it gets difficult, that's what you've been training for. That work was a really good example of that because I wanted to stop doing that work many times. I mean, I still can't really talk about that work without crying. I definitely can't talk about it publicly without crying. It's some of the most painful work I've ever done, but it's also the most satisfying work that I've ever done because it reaches people in a different way.
Yeah.
I had covered Iraq for many, many years, and it didn't reach people in such a visceral manner. People look at those images, it looks like a Hollywood film. It's so cool, man. High five. Like, fuck you. Like, these are Iraqis and Americans suffering and dying for something you voted to do. I don't give a shit whether you voted for or against Bush or went to an anti-war rally or not. You're still a member of a democracy. Take responsibility for this. We didn't. Largely, we didn't. We ghettoized the military by making it a volunteer army. So I felt that part of my job was to try to make us connect with who it was that fought and try to make it more difficult for us as a society to send these men and women to war. Or these men and women are non-binary for that matter, to war. And the only way you can do that is by personalizing it. And so what I took away from that project is you can't personalize it in the old way. The old way doesn't work anymore. The old way is just to go out and photograph, bang, bang, and put a name under it. You know, Sergeant Weller looks downrange and shoots an Iraqi because she lost her loved one in 9/11. Nobody gives a fuck about that anymore. You look like the same soldier in the same uniform with the same rifle as we have for the last 20 years. You like show me I hate to say this, but and it's not compassion fatigue because I don't believe we have compassion fatigue, but we do have a visual fatigue of images that look the same. You show me a picture of the Ukraine war today and tell me how different it is from a picture of the Iraqi war or the Afghan war from 2001. It's not that different. And that sucks. I wish that we cared more, except I'm a photojournalist and like what I care about this more than anybody, but I look at these pictures from Ukraine and I struggle. If I struggle, imagine what the readers are feeling. So we need to find different ways, different angles, different methods, different styles, whatever it is, just different ways. And that project taught me that you can find different ways, and it's hard, but you can do it. And sometimes that means, it's not just hard finding the way, but it's hard doing the work.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you've also done some multimedia work. I remember watching an interview with you and you were talking about documenting a suicide hotline and the pictures themselves weren't great, but the audio was
Yeah.
remarkable and that took
Yeah.
it to the other level. So I wonder for you, how else do you experiment with that?
I tried that for a while. Like the suicide hotline was amazing. And I do experiment. Like sometimes I'll try to do video. I'm shit with it. It's too much to think about. And I've done sound. What I've settled with is writing more.
Yeah.
Um, that's a better fit for me. Video is not a good fit for me. Um, Now what I've gotten better with and what editors need is vertical images, which is a funny thing. Everything's on the phone,
I
right?
was going to say phone, right? Okay.
Yeah. I think like 80% of readers are are using the phone. So
Wow,
like
80%.
I found that I could transition quite easily into vertical photography, which is pretty bizarre because we see horizontally, except so that makes me useful in a way. But it's also a totally different way of seeing. Like try filling a vertical frame versus horizontal. But I like it. Like one of my strengths has always been doing stuff that nobody else wants to do because it's either too hard, it's not visual, or it's too dangerous. So um, doing all vertical stories is like, what the fuck? Like, no, I've done this for 20 years. So I'm like, but I'm always up for a challenge. I love that. Like the harder the challenge, the more excited I get. So when often like editors recognize this point, they'll be like, this story sucks. It's not visual at all. Let's call Ash.
Well, and that's such a visual switch too, because I'm thinking of like the double truck, right? Like in the magazines and
Yeah.
otherwise, and like the whole
Yeah.
idea of like shooting the wider shots. So going to vertical, is that the reason why you did that vertical story in the New York Times
Yep.
about
Yep.
the
Yep.
restaurant?
Yep. It's so funny. Yeah. Exactly. But it totally makes it, right?
It
I
totally
mean,
makes
and
it.
it's good for New York because like New York City is a vertical city, literally. It's a vertically stacked city. I mean, like IKEA is made for New Yorkers.
Yes, I can speak to that.
You damn well can.
Well, and the other thing that I want to talk about too is immigration, because you've done a lot of work with migrants. So
Yeah.
how I have some of your recent work is more around, I mean, a lot of city work, you know, like the various cities that are evolving and climate coming into that, because that's obviously impacting how we live and where people are living. But I'm curious for you when we talk, I mean, obviously immigration and migration is a massive topic right now, but where do you sit with that? Where do you potentially see, or maybe your work is evolving in that area right now?
No, so I'm trying to get back into the immigration work. I'm struggling a little bit because I'm a green card holder, so I'm apprehensive to travel a lot.
Yeah.
That said, the current administration has almost made it easier to work domestically, particularly on migration. There's a lot of sensitivities around working domestically in the United States right now on migration. Um, people don't want to people don't want to identify themselves or be the person who speaks out because they will be punished. That's been made quite clear. So I'm trying very hard to find ways to actually work around this to try to find people to speak to, but to try to find methods that I can document what I think is a pretty critical time in the United States. Like, regardless of what happens in the next number of years, this is a really important time in our history. And I know that there are a lot of news photographers out there covering it, but I feel like I've got something to add that is unique. Now, with the migration part of it, ICE agents grabbing people off the street, deportations and camps, I think that I can get access to that. How? I'm not sure yet. I'll get back to you on that. I've got something in the works. It might happen. Um, but no one's got it yet. Like no one's got it yet. It's all what this administration has done, and I think they learned this from the Obama administration, is they're controlling their message with their own photographers and their own videos. That's not how independent journalism is done. This is propaganda. You know, they don't want somebody who is off message to come in, except I think that I've got this weird pedigree now where, you know, I've covered so much around the world, particularly with the US military. People get this sense on both sides of the aisle that I'm like this patriotic, nationalistic guy, which I'm fucking not. I'm a journalist. You know, I see both sides of the story and I try to cover them both as fairly as I can. Um, I recognize heroism just as I recognize stupidity. Um, but I try to keep my opinion out of what I do unless it's an opinion story. Anyway, I think there's a way to get this. The I was covering a lot of immigration stuff in Europe from 2015 to 2019, covering families as they moved across the Mediterranean, across the refugee route, and then into Germany and Austria, and as they settled. That ceased in 2020, and I was going to get back to it, but something happened, which was one of the families that I was covering. Their father, who had come earlier, he actually defected from General Assad's military the general of intelligence.
Wow.
He defected in exchange for German citizenship. He got arrested for crimes against humanity. So my family, this little family that I was covering, all of a sudden said, absolutely no, you can't cover us anymore. You can't photograph us anymore. And I was like, I think that we can separate this. I mean, you can't separate it really, right? Except the story became more compelling because, of course, if you bring in 1 million people in a year, of course you're going to bring in guys like that. But you also bring in this absolutely beautiful family. Like Khalid and Amira, the parents, were two of the most beautiful people you will ever meet. So brave with with their kids. The way that they would protect their children from these traumatic events, like crossing the Mediterranean was very dangerous, was very traumatic. So they kept their kids awake for 3 days before that boat trip. so that as soon as they put them on the boat, they would pass out. The kids have got no memory of the boat trip. I mean, they almost died. They have no idea that they almost died. Every time they would get to a border crossing with the Macedonian police, like shoving their parents with guns, their parents would hide them from the police, and then they would get to a sign that says like Macedonia. I was going to say welcome to Macedonia, but it doesn't say welcome. It just says Macedonia. And they would put the kids in front of them and they'd say, now smile, and pretend the whole thing was a family holiday. They're so smart. They're so sweet. The dad is like a physical education teacher. She's a therapist. Like, I've never met parents like this. They are not guilty of their father's sins. But immigration draws onto these questions. You know, like it brings up these questions that are very real. I'm living in the East Village of New York. You know, there was a refugee crisis, a migrant crisis, they called it. Migrant's such a dirty word. It's so loaded. I tend to use asylum seeker because that's generally what people are. Like a migrant is a different thing from asylum. Everybody that was coming here was seeking asylum. But we had lines, like, so one of the processing centers was actually downstairs from my house.
Wow.
So we would have lines of 1,000 men, women, looking for shelter for months. So it's a constantly evolving thing, as is the coverage. What was interesting in New York is there were a lot of flag waving liberals here who all of a sudden didn't appear to be very liberal when you had a lot of black migrants on their doorstep.
Not the first time.
Yeah, fair weather liberals, right?
Not the first time that's happened. Yeah.
Yep. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. While we're talking about New York, obviously you live in New York. You've been covering it. You cover it personally, just on Instagram and on your iPhone and otherwise. I remember we were both there for Sandy.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember you taking photographs of that cluster. And then you have the cluster of COVID.
Yeah.
And you documented that. But what else in New York are you covering right now? What is interesting to you about New York?
I mean, it's funny. Everything. Like it's such a fascinating, crazy city that's just so constantly evolving. Like, I've lived here for long enough now that I've seen blocks change multiple times, neighborhoods change multiple times. You remember when you came here, what Williamsburg looked like?
Yeah, I know now it's like high rises.
Right. But like, you wouldn't go there at nighttime. When we moved here, like Williamsburg at midnight, fuck no.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it wasn't that crazy, but it wasn't chill. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was grungy as hell.
Yeah. And then like Vice moved in, and then it got a little bit cool. And there were warehouse parties, and the Autumn Bowl moved in, and then it got like a little bit cool. And then it changed again, and then again, and now it's like downtown Ohio. Well, complete with
Don't tell
urban.
Williamsburg that.
Yeah, yeah. Williamsburg is just Ohio. I mean, it's like, like it's a mall. It's a shopping mall with like these prefab apartments, but it's fine. I mean, it's fine. It's nice. It should be. It's fine. It's nice. It's a beautiful view of Manhattan as well. I shouldn't be such a dick. But it's changed. It changes. And I photograph it, and I photograph all these neighborhoods in New York, and I love it. I love how these places evolve and they change. Like I've been photographing the Bowery for a long time, and there's this section of the Bowery just south of Delancey, and it's what we used to call the lighting district. What we still call the lighting district, but that would just be you and me because there's no more lighting stores there. So forever we would go there and we get our bulbs, or our lights, or our fixtures, or our ugly ass chandeliers if we wanted to go in that direction, And it was just all those stores, with Russians and Chinese and
Yeah,
new
they were
migrants.
huge.
And and these stores were so deep, some of them multi-level, and it was so cool. It was so much fun. And I would photograph those stores. And then in 2020, during the pandemic, a lot of those stores started moving out, closing down. And then there was one of the really old school ones. Like there was just like one old school one left. You know, there's a couple of like the new fancy ones that the architects go to, but like you know
Yeah.
the old ones.
With
That
like
had a
all the
sign.
like light bulbs and boxes with so much dust on it, and like they were
Yes,
the only ones that knew where it was. It was like this crazy old like library
exactly.
of some sort.
Yeah, it was old New York. It was
Yeah.
old Bowery, New York. They put up a sign. It was called Lighthouse, and it had a picture of a lighthouse. And they said, and it said closing down sale. And so I went to the lady and I was like, "Are you really closing down?" Or she was like, "No, no, we got to go. We can't. We're not doing enough." So I photographed that. It was sad. They closed down, and that was it. The lighting district is gone. So I watched, and a couple of years later, the stores filled up with other things, and then there was some like pop-ups of clothing shops, and then it started getting really hip in that neighborhood. And then a fucking Moxie Hotel opened, and then nightclubs opened, and now that whole block where those lighting stores used to be is demolished. There's a hole in the ground. As of 3 weeks ago, I drove past, and I was like, my jaw hit the ground. I was like, I can't. Like the photographs that we make, not just me, but all of these photographers shooting in New York, like they're documents. They're documents of times past, and I there's an energy and there's fun and excitement of photographing the city because it's so crazy and it's so quick, it's so fast and it's so mad, and sometimes the interactions are so like fingernails on a chalkboard. Like it's awful, but it's fun. And sometimes like you're in the rhythm with the city, and like then it's perfect. Like it's just when you're in rhythm with New York, it's great. But other times you're not, and it's fun both ways. But in the end, you've got these documents of a city that is going through this constant evolution. You know, like there was a version of New York City that you lived in. There was a version of New York City that existed for a year during COVID, and that was a very strange version. And now we have this new version, which, well, I think there was a version even in between now and the post-COVID, when there was all the outdoor dining and sort of no rules.
Yeah.
But it's constantly evolving and photographing that evolution and trying to understand it and make sense of it. It doesn't make sense until you look back at the last year worth of work. And then all of a sudden, as a grouping, you see it.
Yeah.
Because you look at this place, 9 million people grinding and trying to eke out an existence, nothing makes sense. And you look at yourself in the mirror every night, and you're like, why the fuck do I live here? Then you wake up in the morning, you go out, and you're like, God damn, that's why. The best city in the world.
So you're still in love with it.
Well, it's love hate, you know. You gotta get out. You gotta get out
Yeah,
now and
that's part of it.
then.
Well, and as we come to wrap up this conversation, I'm laughing because you said that one of the things that you wanted to promote on this show was common sense, and I know that you said that as a joke, but I think that's actually pretty poignant right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we are certainly lacking in that. And not just in the United States. I mean, to be fair,
Yeah.
this is very much in Australia, up north, Canada, and across Europe. Like, I don't think that we are considering things with our brains as much as with our hearts. Um, I love, like just like the next person, I love considering and acting even sometimes on emotions, but when it comes down to policy and on things that affect other people's lives, I think that we need to start acting and thinking in a rational manner. Do no harm, first and foremost.
Yeah, and the other thing there, I think, which is the operative word, is do, because so many of us, as we started off talking about, are feeling frozen right now. And yes, I mean, I admit to that. I admit to feeling pretty. I mean, I don't necessarily want to say apathetic. It's definitely crept in, but we can't sit by. We have to actually, we have to be mindful of what we take in, but we are accountable to a certain extent, and we have to step up. And that's one of the reasons why I do this show. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Kudos.
Thank you. And you, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you on so many levels, but any final thoughts that you want to share before we say adios?
Well, let's get a drink next time you're in town.
We will do that. And whoever's listening, if you want to join us, maybe we'll let you in. Ash, thank you. Thank you for continuing to do what you do and not give up, because that's obviously such a massive part, and documenting it because, as I said when we started the show, it's really vital that people continue to document what's going on in the world, if not more important than ever. So thank you for everything that you do, and thank you for being here.
My pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Ash.
Bye.
The Courage Effect is brought to you by Weller Collaboration. If you're looking for a leadership coach, maybe a speaker or a consultant to help you or your team be more courageous and adaptable, we would love to have a conversation. More information is available via the links in our show notes. Please spread the word about the Courage Effect. You taking a few minutes to rate or review your favorite episodes or share them with people in your universe makes a big difference. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. For more information about the show, me, our amazing guests, or you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, please contact us via our website at thecourageeffect.com. It takes a village to bring this show to you. I want to thank Alex Mandyforth for her production and administrative superpowers, Dave Nelson for composing our theme music, and I am your host and sometimes producer, Suzanne Weller. Thank you again for listening.